Welcome to the G&JB show. Jack Bowen, number 46. How are you, mate?
I'm good, Whiteaxe. How are you?
Yeah. Today we've got Gary Richards. We just found out his surname.
Don't hold me to that name.
Mate, Gaz Hazard. Mate, a rapper. Let's get to that later. But mate, we welcome you on the show. We've known you for a long time. You've been a good friend of the gym and all ours for a long time. We've trained you and your son. And
Yep.
mate, it wasn't until later on after I'd known you for a few years, I even knew about your rap career. My brother-in-law follows Aussie hip hop, and he knows all about you and the 750 Rebels. But mate, let's take us back to the start. The start. Where it started, where you were born, where you grew up. Let's take it from there, right?
Yeah, well, I probably wouldn't class myself as a rapper. I'd have to pull you up there.
Right. Sorry.
First and foremost, I'd probably be a father and a husband and an artist. I'm a man of many things, I suppose. But yeah, that's one of those things. That's being an artist. But I suppose we moved here from Penzance, which is like south of England, when I was really young. Just me and my brother and mum and dad, so really tight knit. But moved to Illawarra in Sydney and grew up there, and I suppose pretty poor at that point. You know, my dad and mum moved us over here for a job opportunity that my old man had, and I didn't know much about it being so young, but we moved around a lot, moved from Illawarra and then out to Campbelltown. I sort of went to school out in Campbelltown, and next thing I knew, we were moving to Brisbane. So a few years later, we ended up in Brisbane in grade 3, 4. So I went to Runcorn State School and, you know, just started moving on with life there. But met some good mates there and got into doing, you know, cross-country running and playing football, which is, you know, like, I suppose, church for people from England, you know.
General sporty kid, I suppose, then?
Yeah, it was just sort of natural for us. My old man played semi-professional football back in England for Penzance, and he toured Germany and stuff like that as a footballer, and so he could have took that role and gone and played football sort of professionally, I suppose, if he wanted to, but ended up taking the career road. He was sort of kicked out of school in grade 10 for, you know, bad behaviour, I suppose, but then went through night school and taught himself, and now he's an engineer and runs a pretty good company, you know. So he's my motivation to sort of give back, I suppose, and get to where he is. But yeah, schooling was kind of weird because it was only me and my brother, and a lot of the guys I grew up with, you know, Indigenous boys, they always had cousins and uncles and grandparents, and you know, they'd always have someone with them. And for me, there wasn't there. So I sort of gelled with a lot of kids that had big families, you know. So I suppose that's probably one of the reasons why I ended up the way that I did, was probably trying to gain friendships, I suppose, because I didn't have cousins or I only had my brother. But yeah, then ended up going to Sunnybank High and getting more and more involved in sport and you know, doing rep teams for indoor and outdoor soccer, football, and doing long distance running. I suppose the sport was like, so I didn't have to do school, you know, because I struggled with it. So that was my out. It was like, if I'm good at sport, I don't have to do school. So that was sort of the mindset, I think, looking back now that I think about it. But yeah, school was a hard one for me again. Going to high school, not much family, you know, skinny white kid, big school of Indigenous boys, Islander boys, Vietnamese kids, and it was a very multicultural school back then in the 90s, Sunnybank High. And there was some pretty good sportsmen there, and you could tell that they could possibly make something of it. But when you're that young, 14, 15, you don't really think about that kind of stuff. You're not really worried about what's going to happen in 10 years. It's more what's evolving at the moment, you know. So, but yeah, sport was definitely an outlet for me. I love doing it. And my dad was my football coach down at South United. I played there in Division 1 for many years. And yeah, so
South United.
Yeah.
Is that it? You're on that one?
No,
What's that?
at Runcorn Station.
Oh, Oh, yeah.
They were the ones that beat Rocco's team 15-0 last weekend.
Yeah, I've reminded
Sounds
me of
about
that.
right.
Yeah.
South is a good football team,
Yeah.
and they didn't
Is
have
that opposite the Lorries field?
Yeah.
Yes, I know where it
And
is.
so that's where I grew up. So I sort of grew up in Altandy Station sort
That's
of
like
area.
Runcorn area. And
Yeah,
Sunnybank.
Sunnybank, where Runcorn and Sunnybank sort of meet. So I just walk down there and train all the time. So, but then my old man sort of pulled me aside and just sort of said, "You need to sort of focus on football," because I was representing Brisbane South at that point in outdoor and doing indoor soccer down at Argonaut there. A lot of us played there, and he just said, "You need to make the decision. Do you want to do long distance running or football? You know, because football is more explosive, long distance is more endurance, obviously." And that was when I realised that, you know, taking it seriously took that extra level of commitment, and I wasn't ready for that. So, sort of dragged me away from the sport a little bit, having that, I suppose, pressure put on it and not enjoying it anymore. And that's where it sort of, I drifted off from it, to be honest. Yeah, when I was grade 10, stopped playing sport as much, started getting in trouble.
yeah, this is like, you think what I'm thinking?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think without like our school program does, you know what we do, and I think it's around that age, like 15, 16, that's where kids drop off.
It is.
You talk to them about their passions, and it's always, I love rugby, I love footy, I love this, I love that, and then
ask them what they want to do, they
why
don't.
aren't you doing it?
They don't know what they want to do.
Because of their reasons you exactly just brought up.
Because no one's bringing it up to them.
And then life just goes different for them. Would you say that was like pretty much what happened?
Definitely. I suppose trying to earn respect from kids or dudes that didn't deserve it. I suppose that's probably the biggest thing. Looking back now to try and, I always look back and think, where did it go wrong? Not that it went wrong for me. I'm happy where I am now, and I don't regret anything because it brought me where I am now. But you know, I always think about other paths that I could have gone down and stuff like that. You know, when I was at Sunnybank, we were in a thing called Centre of Athletic Development. It was CAD, and you had to be chosen. It was part of schooling, so it was an hour every day to do, you know, strength and development. You do all this different type of training. We trained at QAS a lot up at the stadium there. That was when the Broncos played there. So it felt pretty cool to be invited to go and train up there. But then again, the pressure of it all, you know, I'd go to school at 5 in the morning every day. We'd run 2 or 3 Ks, come back, run around the field with sleds on with weights on it, and then go to school.
It's a commitment, isn't it?
Yeah, and then after that it was football at night, and then it was too much, to be honest. So I'd sort of take that step with my son. I want him to come to me and say, I want to do it today, and so until that happens, I don't force anything upon him.
Yeah, I think.
But you got to explain kids' potential to them, you know, and just say to them, look, these are your options, you know, like, yeah, you can play football, but you got to do this, this, and this to do it, you know, and you can't do this, this, and this if you want to do that.
Yeah.
No one's telling them what they can't do, what they shouldn't do. So being honest with kids, brutally honest, and that's what I do with my music. It's a brutal depiction of that life. Yeah. That life that you don't want to get involved in because there's nothing down there but pain and misery, you know. So. Yeah.
But on the same token, when we try and make a point with our kids that they don't train more than 3 days a week, you know, when they're young, they'll make decisions later on, so that we don't burn them out before they're ready. You know what I mean? And that's it. Sometimes you've got to hold yourself back because you want to. Some clubs are doing 5 days a week and 2 days a week as kids. Okay, if you look at percentages, there'll only be about 6% of those kids that train too much.
Yeah.
Only very few will turn into adult athletes.
They've got to want to do it. Yeah. Well, at Shadow Boxing, where I've been working a bit, it's 2 days a week, Tuesday, Thursdays, and it's 4 days a week for the rest of the guys. Yeah. So we have that extra day on the Friday if guys want to get in to do extras, but we want them to have their weekends to themselves. You know, it's not all about that. You know. And you've got to be winning in life to be winning anywhere, with work, with whatever sport, whatever. You know, you've got to have that mentality that no fuckery. You know what I mean? You can't have fuckwits around you because they'll taint your good energy. You know.
Surround yourself by good.
It took me 44 years to learn that one, bro, I'll tell you. And I'm 44 this year, so.
No, that's good. So, mate, when you said you sort of started dropping out of sport. Where did that lead you?
Nowhere good. Nowhere good. I suppose before I went to high school, I had some kind of a traumatic thing happen to me. Like I was held down in like bonfire ashes. So I had 3rd-degree burns all up my forearm and all over my back when I was grade 6. And that was from a guy lived across the road from us, drunk, and me and my mate were playing in a vacant field next door, throwing some sticks around. Something happened. He ended up grabbing me, not realizing that the ashes were still hot, and held me down in it. And I look back on that moment. I've never really spoken about it publicly. I don't really, because it's a lot of trauma there. But I think not having any faith in anyone older than me from that point on, I struggled with anything. Like I felt like that anybody older than me was a threat from that point on, because this older guy had done that to me across the road from my house. And I spent 18 months in bandages. Like that's why I got tattoos all up my arm, all over my back,
Just
cover it. And it was painful getting it done, but it's traumatic. I speak to another mate of mine from Adelaide who's gone through 3rd-degree burns injuries, and like he had a Molotov cocktail thrown on him when he was like 9 years old, and we talk about it. And like one of his like inspirations is Lara Pitt, you know, that lady did, and he's friends with her now and does a lot of art and works in the space of getting kids to, you know, believe in themselves. He's an Indigenous artist himself, and so not using that trauma to make excuses for, you know, doing that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So when I got in deep, put it this way, I went from like doing sport at 15 to by the time I was 17, overdosing on heroin, being dead for 5 minutes, being charged with like 180 charges from like organised crime stuff, been in an undercover operation for 9 months in the biggest drug house in Logan, all from the ages like 16 to 17.
Wow.
So from a 2-year, 3-year period to go from like, fuck, I could have been good at this or had a job here, the opportunities were there, I turned my nose up to it all and chose that fucking road, you know. So it's shocking to a lot of people when I say it like that, but that's what it is. And if you don't explain it like that, people don't understand like how quickly it can turn. I mean, how many people do you know, and how many people, you know, have you seen with talent that just want to hang out with the boys, you know, and trying to earn respect from the wrong people? And that's, I have to say it again, like that's pretty much what it was me not feeling like I had any respect from the older generation doing sport because of my bad attitude, but no one really asked where the bad attitude came from, you know.
Mate, can you remember? Look, this will probably be painful, to be honest, and just tell me, and if you don't want to produce, we'll cut it out, okay? But when you were saying it, you mentioned the heroin, otherwise I wouldn't bring it up. I didn't know that. Did you, Jacko?
No, not at all.
Can you...
6 months
how
up.
did it start? What happened?
Unsavoury characters, I'll say. Yeah. Guy I met at high school, I won't blame him, but he was the first person to introduce me to that heavy, hard types of drugs. And that was, you know, that was meth, you know what I mean? So that was what I tried first, and it was so intense that it made me feel welcome in that circle, I'll put it that way. Because if you weren't in that mindset where you were high as a fucking kite and with that fake bravado, which is what cocaine and all those higher upper drugs do to you, then I wouldn't have felt worthy to be in that space, and I wanted to be in that space for some reason because I didn't want to be over there anymore.
I know you touched on at the start, like it was just you and your brother, and do you think you were kind of trying to get accepted as part of a group, and because you never
100%.
had that outside,
Yeah.
like you said, you grew up with a lot of Indigenous boys, Polynesian lads, and they would have had a lot of sense of community, and you never really had that.
100%. My best friend from the day I went to high school to now, Leaf, you know Leaf?
Yeah.
He's father, godfather to my son. He's like the biggest Indigenous influence on my kids. He was the first person to come to me when I got out of jail and say, "What the fuck are you doing this shit for, bro?" Like straight up, I know you. Like, where the fuck have you been? You know.
Yeah.
Everyone else is like, "Let's go, guys. You're a mad cunt. You're good at this shit." Because I was actually pretty good at doing crime, and I took that mentality of being good at sport to like, oh yeah, I'm getting props from getting away with this shit and getting away with this shit, and like "Oh, you're a mad cunt, Gaz." I'm like, back then, that's a pat on the back for a young
Yeah,
kid.
yeah.
But now, a mad cunt to me is not that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely looking for. People call it peer pressure. I don't call it peer pressure. I'm finding a space where you fit in, and that's what kids will do. If they don't feel comfortable somewhere, they'll find somewhere where they do feel comfortable. And if you call someone the bad guy long enough, that cunt will be the bad guy. If you lock someone up in a cage, treat them like a fucking animal, that cunt will turn into a fucking animal.
Yeah.
That's just nature.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why my wife works in with Sisters Inside. She's vice president there now, and they work with a lot of women's prisons, so that there is options for them to come outside of prison. You know, so and you don't understand that without lived experience. You know, so there's another story that like you guys might not know about my wife. She was the youngest person in this country to be charged with murder when she was 16.
Wow.
Yeah.
I knew there was something because you touched,
Yeah.
but we'd never got into it.
I don't speak about it much, but we use it now as energy to teach the next generation that, you know, do you want to waste 10 years of your life sitting there bored as fuck doing nothing?
Is that how long she did?
9 years for manslaughter is what she ended up doing, yeah. And that's where her and Debbie Kilroy sort of met, and so Debbie's my auntie and Joe's my uncle through that.
Yeah.
They started Sisters Inside all those years ago. I got out of jail and went straight back in there to visit her because my wife was my best mate's sister.
Yeah.
So me and my best mate went through all of that crime and all of that drug house. That was his uncle's house that we lived at. So this is family.
Yeah.
So for us, it was like you do the right by your family, and if your family's in jail, and you go and visit them, you bring stuff into them, you send them stuff up, you look after them, and then it's expected that when you get locked up, because that's part of the process of being a criminal, is that you're going to get locked up, and you know, it's like 9 to 5 workers have holiday. Crime, you do jail. That's the mentality of it, and it's a fucked mentality.
It is.
But people who have done time and like people who are institutionalized from it, they'll understand what I mean by that. But a lot of them, the general public won't get it.
Mate, without the drugs, was there crime? Or was it, you know what I mean? What were you into first? Were you into crime or were you into drugs? Or
Good question.
Yeah.
Came about the same time.
Did it?
Yeah. Comes hand in hand. Yeah. I did a bit of graffiti when I was younger. It was more just an outlet for creativity, I suppose.
Cheeky, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. The guy that I got into the gear with was a graffiti writer, so we were sort of all out doing, trying to outdo each other at that point, and just trying to be provocative, I suppose, and looking for some, I don't know what it was really.
I don't know, but at the time it was something.
Yeah, it was something. You're searching for something at that point, but yeah, I look back at that and just think it was just an outlet for creativity that I was trying to do that, but it led me down into the midst of all that shit. So again, you hang around with the wrong people, you're going to end up doing the wrong things.
Yeah, that's, we try and bounce that lesson to the kids, don't we, Jacko? Yeah.
Yeah, man. One bad egg will ruin the whole lot too. That's why the guys brought me in down at Shadowboxing, was to be a mentor to some of the young kids, is so that you can teach them that, here's proof. Here's fucking living proof. I'm living proof. That you can turn it around, and if you want to waste your life, have fun with that life. Yeah. But we're here for you when you're finished. You know what I mean? But
please don't stay in it too long though, because
you might not come back from it.
That's right.
I've seen people like my best mate growing up went to Runcorn State School with him, Sunnybank High with him, got caught up doing armed robberies, ended up getting 18 years for armed robberies, did 12 of it. When he got out, I saw him, turned up to my house, a different guy, full on violent mentality. You could see it in his eyes. And he ended up doing a protection racket for guys in jail because him and his family were really fierce dudes, So that's what it came down to. Now I think they're involved in bike clubs and stuff like that. So a lot of younger generations will evolve to that bike club mentality. You see it. And a lot of the bike clubs do target those kids. Now they target them in the prisons because they know that their mindset is right where they want them to be.
Yeah.
So they
want to be part of something.
Yeah, they want them to be fierce, and they want them to be loyal, and they want them to be tough. And that's 3 things that people that have been to prison are, if they've been there long enough. Unless, I didn't spend a long time there. I won't get into how long I spent there, but I didn't spend a long time there compared to a lot of my friends. But what I did learn there is I don't want to be there. You know, it's boring. Fuck, there's nothing to do there. You know, there's nothing there apart from people preaching that negative mindset. You know, bragging about stuff. It's like the running joke was, what are you up to? Oh, 6 years. It's like, it's a joke. I'm doing 6 years. What are you doing? 6 years. Oh, no, I mean, what are you doing today? Oh, fuck all. What else are you doing? You know what I mean? So it's yeah. And you see people, the older generation, that are never going to get out of there and never going to get out of that mindset, prey on these younger dudes. Man. They prey on them, and they're like, yeah, here, I'll look after you. But I won't tell you why.
Yeah.
You know, I reckon I wouldn't have done so well when I was locked up because I was 17, just turned 18 when I got locked up. I got like a 3-year suspended sentence, and I breached that in 2 months. And like at community service, so it was like.
So that didn't scare you enough, but you had to go in to actually feel what it was like.
Threatening me with 3 years jail didn't scare me.
Yeah.
Ended up getting like 18 months or something, and you know, so. But luckily, when I got locked up, I wasn't a violent offender or I was a first offender, so there was programs there for me.
Yeah.
There was like work programs. You'd have to go and do work out in the community before you would be let out. And if you didn't do that, you would just go from maximum security straight to the civilian life. And that's not a good step.
Yeah.
And that's what happens now in the prison system. There's no integration programs.
Yeah.
You know, so when I was at Palin Creek, there was a program, I think it was called Magic. And it was for young offenders, and there was like 10 of us, and they took us on like a hiking trip. We went rock climbing and all this kind of shit, all in Browns, all in prison uniform, but in a van, going out to do some normal shit. You know what I mean? Hiking, fucking being out in the wilderness. This is what it's what you take away from people. Like it goes from punishment to, from rehabilitation when I was there to punishment now. With the laws that are created now. So there is no opportunity. So what you guys are doing is essential to stop the influx of those generation. But they also need programs for people coming out of prison. And that's what Sisters Inside does with the women, is offers them jobs as baristas, teaches and gives them opportunities to use their art to get them on platforms because social media is so big now. And but yeah, that's what I see now is the biggest issue, and it frustrates the fuck out of me is just seeing the younger generation get corralled by these older fucking waste of space, to be honest. You know, we won't let them in the gym, won't let them come and train there. Kids are more than welcome. Yeah, we want that, but if they turn up and they're off their fucking face, it's just like wait in your car, and then we'll think about it. We don't want that. You know.
Exactly. Yeah, mate. I was just thinking, take me back to before you went to court, the final time before you went inside, did you know you were going in?
Yeah.
Did you? What was that feeling like?
The 9 months leading up to it?
Yeah, from when you knew that you were going, were you shitting yourself? Were you thinking, that's not my world, I'm a different kid? Like,
half of the course?
Yeah. Or you were prepared?
You have to be.
Yeah.
Because it was a rite of passage for a young crim. For me, that was what was drilled into me.
Yeah.
You do your time, you'll be welcome back with open arms. We'll have new shoes for you.
So it's like
a rite of passage.
Yeah, you badge of honour, you've done it.
Yeah, and think about it. So when I got locked up, my uncle was a high-level member of the bike club. So I got locked up as his son in the system. So just because he's a bad cunt and he's got all these fucking people that are fear of him, there's just as many people that don't like him. So it was a dangerous place to be for a young, skinny white kid who, without drugs, couldn't fucking fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Didn't have that mongrel in him. And, I got the shit kicked out of me all through high school, by various people. I won't bring their names up because that'd be wrong. But,
did we speak about them before?
Yeah,
we
did.
Did we really?
We did.
But
we'll keep that one.
Yeah, that's
off.
fair. Yeah.
But, I don't speak about people unless they're in the room. So,
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, I think that's what it was. It was a fake bravado trying to, if I was on meth, I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. We'd get sent out in a fucking car, the uncle's car, to go and collect money off people with a pistol in the car. Like, we're here, go and get the money. So that was our job, was to go and collect money from 6-foot fucking bikies that have been to jail already, and here's two skinny 15, 16-year-old kids just got their license, driving an F truck.
Yeah.
And you see the fear in these guys' eyes. So it was all consuming. Yeah, because they knew that we were dangerous.
Yeah.
It was fuck them all. It was a mentality, fuck them.
Did you feed into that? Did you feed off that?
For sure.
I'm only talking from a boxing perspective, but when you know you got someone, like, it's a good feeling. I know this is completely different.
No, it's not.
The same
You're exactly
kind of drug,
right.
you know what I mean? When you see someone, they're slowly, body shots are sinking.
You're breaking them down.
You're breaking them down, and sometimes I feed into it too much, but that's
there's some guys you can break them down as much as you want, they won't quit though.
Yeah, and you can tell though. You can tell.
Same thing. You can break these guys down as much as you want, but they won't quit. They won't quit at all. They'll just become worse and worse because you're making them worse and worse.
I was going to ask you another question. I know you said it was hostile going to jail because of your uncle's influence, but on the same hand, did you have a lot of people that you grew up with that were in the system as well? That
Definitely.
kind of went in there like a big graduation party?
It was like that from Sunnybank High. There was some guys that went to Sunnybank that were all in there, everywhere. So it was Sunnybank at the time wasn't a flash suburb, I suppose you could call it, that it is classed as now. But yeah, it was like a school reunion for sure, definitely. Some of the guys I went to high school with, one of them actually was one of Australia's most wanted for breaking one of the most notorious bank robbers out of prison. And he was a guy I went to primary school and high school with, So you talk about notorious, it's like you can't get any more notorious than that, So again, I won't say names because but it's kind of sad to see. But then you got guys like Lottie that went to Sunnybank, and they were like, I remember one day I was after Gorrie doing my time. I was been there 3 months, and we're all watching the Broncos game on Friday night. I'm not sure whether he debuted that night or it was the first time I'd ever seen him play. Yeah. Because I didn't realise he was playing for the Broncos at that point, and it was just like a kick in the guts, man. It was like, yeah, fucking go Lottie, like fuck yeah, bro, like. Used to play basketball with this dude. We hung out. Like I consider him, a mate. We were good mates, but I respect him highly, and his brother, and his family. But to see him do something with himself, it's just like, fuck, man, it could have been me, man. Like not playing for the Broncos, but if I had stayed the course, and
just a different life.
and dudes loved the Broncos games, and that's all you had was just betting. There was everything going on it, but. To see that was just like, holy fuck, this big, fit fucking version of that dude that I used to see, cause a bit of trouble when he was younger, like we all do, but just to bring it back around, it's just real inspiring, man. He's an inspiration to a lot of dudes, that guy.
He'll be on the podcast in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, okay.
So that'll be a good one too.
Yeah, he knows me and my brother and that, and so we sort of grew up together, but we played a lot of basketball too. He was a fucking phenomenal basketball player. Yeah. He was just great at every sport, Yeah. But he was a foot taller than everyone in high school. And then his brother was bigger than everybody in high school, and he was a good footballer too, Tavita, So some of those guys were really good.
Did you know Rudy Sukanen?
Maybe.
I just knew he hung around with Tavita. Yeah, Rudy lost his life last year, so I just wondered if he moved it.
No, not really. A lot of them boys, like Little Sassy and that, they were all, because Lottie and that were all living in Woodridge at the time, and we were all in Sunnybank, but they would catch the train up to go to school, so we just hang out a bit, but not so much doing anything other than just getting into trouble and doing dumb shit. So to see him bring it all back around, it was good, It was the first person I'd seen do that. You know what I mean? So everyone else was where I was, doing dumb shit.
And I want to know, without mentioning any names, obviously, because you're talking about some people who've done some bad shit. Tell us some stories, shit that happened that you saw inside.
I wouldn't say inside. Inside is more so structured that
you don't see it.
You do. You don't pay attention to it.
Right.
You're not supposed to.
It's just for your best interest. You stay away. Is that right?
Don't know what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the best way to stay. Yeah. And that's my advice to anybody that gets caught there, because anyone's only like one mistake away from doing prison time. Let's face it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You get drunk, you drive home, run over someone, you're going to get locked up. And I always looked at it like that. Look at it like that now, so you shouldn't look down their nose at somebody who's been to prison because that might have been their catalyst for them turning their life around. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was for me, so it wasn't straight away. But stories about in prison, not so much. I could tell you stories about other people's experiences in prison, but mine was kind of low security, medium security, dudes getting bashed for no reason, fighting over dumb shit. Yeah, I kept my head out of it and just wanted to get out of there. Basically, it wasn't for me. And probably the first actually fight I ever won was in prison. That's probably something that I take away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a young little white dude called me a coon, and like, because I was talking with some of the indigenous boys, and I just didn't take too kindly to it, so I just beat the cunt out of him, and that was it. It was like the bulldog is like, because you have that mentality where your back's against the wall, don't trust anybody, and then when you got people coming up to you saying, oh, yeah, I'll look after you here, I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, I know your uncle. Yeah, but how do you know my uncle?
Yeah, which side are you on?
Yeah. Oh, we'll get you down into this unit. Oh, I'm happy up here. No, we'll get you down here. I'm like, is it to look after me? Is it to butter me up? All this shit's going on.
Second guessing?
Yeah, it took me 3 months to come down off drugs. 3 hard months to sleep properly from it.
Right.
That's from just hard, like every day, probably 5 or 6 times a day, using speed and stuff like that. It was really bad.
Were you what? So
this was at the house in Logan when I lived there.
Were you classed as a drug addict?
Yeah, for sure.
You called yourself?
They classed me as schizophrenic before I left there. Yeah. I wouldn't consider myself that, but they gave me a 98% chance of reoffending in the next 12 months, and I took umbrage to that because I didn't like being told what to do. So that was a catalyst again for me to like, fuck you, I'm not coming back here, you know, like.
That's a good
So
one.
it was a good one,
Yeah.
but I say it like in the truest essence that that's exactly what the way you need to approach the next generation is just like, you know where you're going to be next year, and they don't like being fucking told that that's where they're going to be.
Yeah.
You know, so. But I suppose some crazy stories from the house I used to live at would be, I don't even know where to start. Overdosing on heroin was a big one. Like not knowing that it was heroin that I was taking, and then standing up and going, fuck, that wasn't what I was expecting. And my lifeless body being thrown in the back of a station wagon.
Can you remember this, or were you out of it from?
All I remember is standing up and then waking up in the hospital with my shirt cut off me, with like 7 Narcan shots in my chest. And they were like, are you alright? And I'm like, yeah, I spewed everywhere. And I was like, what'd you do to my fucking shirt? Because I had no idea what was going on. And I stood up and just pulled everything out of me and just walked off. And they were trying to stop me. And I was just ghostly for about 3 weeks after that. You know, the fuck thing is it didn't stop me.
I was just going to say, was that something that
6 months before I got locked up.
So you still kept going?
It took me a few weeks to come back from it. But, yeah, it's fucked.
It's mad thinking of it now.
Yeah, that's how deep I was.
How did I do that?
Yeah, it's like my feet were stuck. Yeah. You know what I mean? I was just stuck there. And at the end, there was no way out apart from me doing my time and being beyond it. And that was my mentality. Was all right if I get through this, and then I've done my crime. I'm going to do my time, and then I'll see what happens. You know. But even after getting out, trying to stay away from those same people is almost impossible.
Yeah, I suppose they want to hit you up once you get out. I suppose.
Well, who else do you know?
You mentioned before, like, just. You know, when the family's in, you're helping the family all the time, and I can imagine it'd be hard when you come out and trying to make a change that you're just going to get dragged back in. Like,
do you let your family down?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Yeah,
and then unfortunately, your family is those people pulling those strings, saying, "Oh, you're not going to come and visit me. You're not going to do this, and you're not going to do that." And then it's like, "Oh, you're a shit cunt." Yeah, and I was like, "Hang on, I've been a pretty good cunt up until now. You know, I've took charges for people, done time for people, fucking." All this shit that I didn't have to do, but I did, trying to be a good fucking bloke, you know, because I was always taught you do the right thing by your mates.
Yeah.
You know, whatever happens, you know. So, but yeah, definitely the pressure was there for that. And again, it wasn't my family. You know, my brother and my mum and dad were happily living over at Sunnybank, so I pretty much shit on them by doing what I was doing. I disrespected the whole fucking, their name every time they see me on the news, which happened occasionally. Like, fucking, it was bad. And it took years for me to earn their respect back, especially my old man's. He came and visit me when I got locked up, and I saw him cry, and it fucking broke me. I wrote a song about it, and that's partly why I write music, is so I can get that shit out of my head.
Is that still on Spotify?
No.
You've taken it?
I've taken a lot of songs down just for my son's well-being. I don't want my songs that I wrote out of anger and out of a place of therapy to be used against him in any way, because a lot of the shit I write is about crime, but like I said before, it's a true depiction of the reality, So, but that's when I got out. Like, that's where it went, was music for me.
So how did that come about then? What
guys I went to high school with and went and just hung out with before pre-crime.
Yeah.
They were like asking, "Oh, how you going? What are you up to?" And we'd go out and like started getting on the piss, and we'd go to the pub and we'd start eating and just doing normal shit again.
Yeah.
But the dealing and drugs was still there.
Yeah.
It just was something that I took years to sort of, because that was income. It was just natural to make some money on the side. And I was a tradie at that point too. I got out and my mate gave me an opportunity. I went and started being a tradie, and I fucking loved it because my hands were being used, you know what I mean? I couldn't sit on my fucking hands locked up, and I've got to do shit, like whether it be work, do shit with my kids, creatively, training, just got to keep your mind active. But yeah, the music came about from just wanting to do something different. And I never started doing music with them. Well, I just started going along to events, and we ended up throwing dudes out that were being disrespectful at the shows, and then we'd get free piss if we'd come along and do the same thing at the next event.
Yeah.
And there was always one guy at the door who'd always go, "No, you can't come in, you're a fuckwit," and that was us at some point. And our mates, 750 Rebels and Lazy Grey, guys that started hip hop in this country, basically, they were doing shows, and then we'd all end up in the studio after the shows, drunk, carrying on, and then the rapping just started, and then my life experience just came out in lyric form, basically. It just came so naturally that it was just... The first time I got asked to write a verse, because they said to me, "Do you want to be on this song?" I was like, "I don't rap."
And easy.
And then I was like, you know what, I'll give it a crack, because I'm not afraid of anything. I'll give anything a crack. And I did it, and then they were all like blown away by how good it was. And I was like, really? Like, is it? Like, it was my first attempt. Can't be that fucking good. And it was ended up releasing it as a guest song on their album.
Yeah.
And that was our crew called CRS. And back then, and that was where it all started. We all got together and started making an album, and it was all around alcohol, drugs were still in the mix, so it wasn't, there was no crime involved. But for me, it was a safe place. I could go, I could drink, I could smoke a bit of weed, I could do a bit of this and do a bit of that, and I could still be not doing something illegal in my mind. But it wasn't until I got rid of that Class A thing out of the system that I really enjoyed being in that space, where I could really be truly creative, because that shit was just mind altering, and it brought that negativity in the room, and no one else saw it apart from me, because a lot of the guys doing music were crims. But they thought they were. It's like musicians always think they can fight or want to be a boxer, and fighters always think they can rap. Am I true? Is it true?
No, it's a pretty fair call, except for this bloke.
Roy Jones.
This bloke.
I'll be honest, I do see similarities in the promotion side of music and boxing. Promoting yourself as a fighter individually, and then making sure that you've got following, and bring a crowd, putting on a performance, spending all them hours in preparing for that 20 minutes in the ring on stage. So there's a lot of similarities there. Obviously, not getting punched in the face is one of them, but it's not one of them. But yeah, it's there's a process.
Yeah, people see the 20 minutes mark.
Yeah, for sure. I always thought that all I saw was the 20 minutes, and my mates would be on stage, and I'd be like, "Oh fuck, he's got paid fucking this to do that." And it would work out pretty good money. And then when I got asked to do my first solo show, I did it, and then we blew the crowd away, and the actual main act was like, "Oh fuck, you were better than the main act." we'll pay you to do the next show, and end up paying us extra money because we sold the show out, and then from then on, it was like you got a bit of notoriety, and people were asking to do shows all over the country and stuff. So we started touring, and we started getting asked to do some of the big acts in the country. It was like I supported Slick Rick, Raekwon from Wu-Tang, R.A. Rugged Man, someone 750 supported pretty much every act that ever came here, like Ice Cube. Some of my mates are supporting Ice Cube at the moment, AB Original, Briggs and Trials, AB Original. They're touring with Ice Cube and Cypress Hill at the moment.
Wow.
And I wouldn't say we're great mates, but I'm pretty good mates with Briggs, not so much Trials, but they're great dudes and they do great things, but they've made that space viable as a job now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For so many younger kids that have that talent and think, oh, I'm just fucking around making music. But no, you could be still going to work, being creative with a future plan to, you know, be an artist. Be creative. It could take you all different avenues. So,
in your younger years, were you into rap music?
For sure.
It was.
Yeah.
You always loved it. Anyway.
My first ever tape was like Public Enemy and Takes a Nation of
right,
Millions. Yeah. So we listened to tapes back then, CDs. I still collect CDs, so I don't even have Spotify or Apple Music now. I still download MP3s off CDs. A lot of the guys at the gym are like, fuck, you're ancient. But,
that's what I'm fucking thinking right now.
Fuck you, Jack. Grow up, cunt.
That's right. I think you've mentioned, like, all the schools we work with, the main three things are, like, getting a trade, fighting, and music.
Yeah.
They're the top three things, but kids need to know you can make a career from, like, weed selling, fighting, but music, trade, anything, you can have that outlet.
Yeah. And you can have them all at once too.
Yeah,
and that's what people don't think. They think, oh, I've got to dedicate my whole time to this. It's like, no, you don't. You don't.
You enjoy yourself.
Because dedicating your whole time, I do that with my business. Like, I fucking work myself ragged for like 30 days, and then I'll have like a week off, and I was like, I fucking need to take time.
Yeah. Because
that rest is essential. You know, you can look at things differently if you're overworked. It's the same thing. It's like anything.
Yeah.
You know?
Sorry, mate. I was just going to go, in your music, what's your highlight?
Supporting Slick Rick.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Being asked to support him was like...
just jumping out of your skin.
Yeah, and then getting paid to do it, you know.
Yeah.
So...
there's money in this?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's good money in it too.
Yeah.
So... people talk about their Spotify playlists and how much money they make off that. They make fuck all.
Yeah,
I'll tell in and out, they're all full of shit.
Yeah.
We used to make money off our physicals. So for me, satisfying thing is to create an album of your own making, not influenced by anybody. Art, getting original art, having original artists, having your friends involved, having support of your peers, and creating something original, and then releasing it and being people accepting it is really cool. It's really cool. It's like creating something where people fuck with you on that level, and you get messages back. Oh, I fucking love that song. I can relate to that. Or I wrote a song about ODing on heroin years ago. It's not available anymore, but I've had multiple messages from people saying, I heard that song and I literally gave up using gear and I've got a trade and I don't do that shit anymore because it was too full on.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the biggest thing. Like I sent that message to my mum and I was like, this is why I do music. And it's just the first time, apart from the little program, the thing we did with boxing with Brad Hoare and that was the only other time she's acknowledged the music I make because she could never listen to it.
Yeah.
It's all about drugs and crime and violence and, you know, that life. But if I don't explain it, no one else will because they talk shit in their songs. It's all false. They rent a car. They'll wear fake fucking clothes and jewelry, and they'll stand in a video and tell you how fucking hard they are.
Yeah.
And it's so fucking bullshit. Yeah. Like, it's so bullshit. And, like, some of these dudes are fully talented guys. Don't get me wrong, some of the guys that are doing this, but it's so fraudulent. It's like a fake foundation to build anything off.
It's a lie, dude.
No,
you
be yourself.
And everyone will
if no one accepts who you are, then fuck them. You make it for who accepts you.
Right,
I make my music for the 1,500 people that buy my CDs or that support my music or follow me on Instagram. You know, I'm private on Instagram, and the amount of people that hit me up to be like, this guy looks like a crumb. Fuck you. I don't want you following me. Like, I've got my support crew, and I make music, and they buy my records. I've sold all my records out. I don't do huge amounts because I know my market. You know.
Can I before coming onto the podcast, like I did a little bit of research, and like we listened to you on another podcast, and there was some article, and I don't know who it's by, so don't have a crack at me. But they asked you a question about advice you'd give for upcoming rappers, and it's basically everything you've said just now. You said be yourself, do you, and focus on you.
Yeah.
And then there's a few other things, and then you said don't judge your value as an artist by the views or likes you get. Judge it by how many people turn up to your shows and actually buy your music. Now I want to touch on that because I think we see that in our space so much.
Yeah.
People are so consumed in this shit on fucking social media, and I've got 20 million fucking followers or 20,000 followers, but you can't sell 200 tickets at your fucking show.
Exactly.
So you got no value to the promoter.
You don't.
And then they expect massive money. So I think that's exactly the same thing. I'd rather have 200 people that love me, that are going to care for me, than 20,000 followers on Instagram. And I think it's everything you've just said.
You could have 20,000 followers, but how many shirts do you make when you do supporter shirts?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And how many people buy them?
They're the people that are there for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then when people see them wearing them, and then those second wave of supporters, they're supporters, but they're not true supporters.
Yeah.
They're followers.
Yeah.
So the difference between a supporter and a follower is exactly that.
I think we've had a few bumps in the road the last few months, and it is that, you know, not much has really changed as far as that perspective.
Social media is built on a false platform where you can buy followers, you can buy views, you can buy likes. I could go onto my videos. I don't have any on YouTube anymore. I could go onto any of my mates' videos that have just been released, go and buy 100,000 views for fuck all money, and do it 10 times. That's 1 million views, and that means that this guy's got 1 million views.
We're doing that for this podcast.
Oh, go for it. I'm not paying for shit. I want real views. But that's what I'm saying.
I just thought I'd bring that up because
it takes the value away from what people who are actually working hard to do realistic goals.
Yeah.
Because you set realistic goals, I do. Yeah. And if I achieve them halfway through the year, I set more.
Yeah.
And that's just part of evolving. And if you're not doing that, then you're just going to sit stagnant. You're going to be that same cunt 20 years from now than you were 20 years ago. Yeah. And you're value to no one.
So how did you build? So this is before social media, obviously. Like, how did you build that initial fan base and those people that really come out to support you?
Well, Facebook had only just come about when we first started CRS. So 2001, I got out of jail. 2003, I started fucking with the guys that were doing music, and it wasn't until like 2005, 6 that we released our first stuff. Those guys had already been doing stuff. But back then, you would go to venues, pub venues that did live music, and you would go in with your CD, and you would go, here, play this, tell me what you think. And if he would start nodding his head, say, we'll do the show for free, we'll get this many people through the door, so you're promoting yourself.
So this
which is a tough graft.
All around Brizzy and
our first ever gig was as a crew was at Rosie's, which is a heavy metal bar in the city. And one of our guys that's passed away now, Bez, rest in peace, he's the guy that started Crush City Paint Supplies up at Annerley. He used to go to all these venues and he'd play them our CD, and if they liked it, they would put us in. So our first ever show as a hip hop group was at a heavy metal bar. Everyone was, it was a good fucking show. We had fun. We had people come from all over the state to come and watch it. We had an act flight from Melbourne, 2 of our mates, Billy Bunks and another guy, Gargoyle, who's passed away recently too. Rest in peace. He came up and we filled the venue, our first ever show. And it was fucking awesome. I still got the flyer.
Were you nervous?
Yeah.
Shit yourself?
Yeah. Fucking hell. It was a pretty average performance too, my first ever live performance. But from that, I got the bug. Yeah. You know, you would have the bug fighting in front of a crowd as opposed to doing sparring in front of a close-knit group. It's the same thing, practicing in front of your crew as opposed to performing in front of people that go, fuck, this guy's pretty fucking good, you know? And you take that with like a pat on the back, like, oh, let's do it some more, you know? Like, oh, fuck yeah.
It's addictive, yeah.
It is very. Yeah. I ran with that and I loved being that energy. It was just have dudes singing your lyrics back to you, and you're like, fuck, did this many people buy my shit?
Yeah, wow.
You know, I'm doing a show in Melbourne. I've been asked to do shows in Melbourne like last year and the year before. I sort of said no. I was trying to focus on the business and other stuff, and I wasn't fully into it. And like I fall in and out of love with music. It's because of the same shit, all the other bullshit, and seeing all the social media success of some people, and like it's like you find yourself competing with it for no God-given reason. But it's a natural thing, and I sort of stepped away from it for a little bit for that reason. But so yeah, doing a show in Melbourne in May, which is cool. So every time I've done a show in Melbourne, like the whole crowd's into it, which is cool. A lot of my crew, my mates, HG crew, they're from Melbourne. So some of my best mates that I have right now, that our kids are like best mates and hang out are through music, without a doubt.
Like, you know, Melbourne people really support like live things,
live
And
music,
like underground stuff
sport.
too, like sport, but yeah, like
fighting and music.
there's pretty good culture. Like
I love Melbourne. Every time I go to Melbourne, within 5 minutes of me landing in my hotel room, I've got dudes knocking on the door.
Yeah, right.
Let's go and have lunch. Fucking let's catch up. So like, I love Melbourne, man. It's like a second home to me. Like for real, it's that one place that I've been to. Like I've performed in Sydney and Adelaide and Brisbane but Melbourne is that place where I feel at home. You know.
So, mate, you young Zane. How old's Zane now?
11.
11.
Yeah.
How many kids you got?
2.
2.
7, my daughter,
Yeah.
Patience, and 11.
So, Zane listens to this podcast. Is he asking questions or does he know?
He's got a vague idea. I'm straight up with my kids.
Yeah.
For honest reasons, so that I know that if I'm honest with them, they could be honest with me.
Yeah.
And I say that to him all the time. I don't give a fuck what you tell anyone else.
Mm.
You come home, you tell me the truth.
It's got to be.
Because I can't stick up for you if I don't know the truth. Yeah. And I don't want him to think that, I fucked up, I've done something wrong, that it's going to be consequences. Because they get consequences at school for their bad behaviour. Doesn't need to be reiterated at home. I try and create that. It's like I learnt that from here when I was training with you and at the other gym. Just respect.
Yeah.
It's the one rule I have in my house. It's the one rule we have in the gym.
Yeah.
You don't need any other rules. It's respect.
Yeah.
If you're disrespecting someone's stuff, revert back to rule number 1. Job done. And that's what I just say to him. Come here. What have you done? Been disrespectful. What do you got to do? Go and make it right. So I make him, keep him accountable. You know?
Does he ever play around in the studio with you?
Yeah. My daughter's
a
a great singer.
Yeah, right.
She loves it. We've tried to get her in the studio to record some songs, but trying to get her to get the lyrics down and read. She's not fully at that level of reading yet, but she will. She'll definitely be an entertainer. Zane will be like me. He'll get into trouble a bit, and he'll learn from his mistakes the hard way, unfortunately. But I want to try and do whatever I can to try and do that, you know. He's a good kid, and I look at him and I think, fuck, so was I, you know. You know, so you just don't try and earn respect from people who don't deserve it. That's my biggest thing. I say to everyone, because just because you think they're a mad cunt or they're doing stuff that you want to be doing doesn't mean they've gone about it the right way, you know. I'm a sit back and watch dude now, for sure. I definitely will, you know, less is more.
Let it evolve and then pull it in when it needs to be pulled in.
I don't want to over parent, you know, micromanage him. You know, we all make mistakes, and sometimes you got to make them. You know, I look back at that young guy that got me in all of that trouble, and I'm thankful for that little cunt. That's all I'll say.
Even though it's a few years of pain, but
oh man, and I suffer the consequences from it now, like with my health. Like I have chronic I've got colon disease. I've got all these issues with my health, and I put it back to just destroying my body for all those years. And like I wake up in nightmares now from the sheer violence that I saw when I was younger and was a part of. And a lot of people won't admit that because they're too self-centered, or they won't admit that any kind of weakness. But I don't see it as a weakness. I see it as being honest with yourself that, that was just too much for a young kid to see, you know? You know, you shouldn't have to put young kids through adult shit, you know what I mean? And that's like locking young kids up is another real fucking touchy thing for me because they're going through it at the moment, locking young kids up at 14 and not having options for them to get out to. I mean, they're 14 years old, you know what I mean? They're fucking kids. They're allowed to make mistakes, you know? They're not adults yet. You know, I've seen young kids get locked up. Well, one of the kids at our gym that came down, he was in juvie from 9 years old, and his mates went looking for him. 3 weeks he was missing, and they're like, "Where have you been?" When he got back home, he's locked up. You know, spent like most of his life as in juvie. I think when he turned 15, he came down to the fight centre where we were training at the time. They gave him a scholarship. 18 months later, he was fighting for a Queensland title as an amateur. So there is those options there. You know what I mean? Just because they're a fucking bad kid does not mean that in 18 months' time you can turn it all around and be an example for another kid.
Right? Yeah, I think hearing your story too, I think you did try and grasp at outlets your whole way through. Like you said, you graffiti, and then yeah, soccer. You know, you had outlets, but you just couldn't find the right one at the time. And I think a lot of young people, girls, boys, but like we obviously work with a lot of young men, they need that outlet.
Yeah, for sure.
And to be encouraged, like told,
Men,
yeah,
young boys generation, they get forgotten about because everybody's talking about the young women and how you need to protect the women. Yeah. And I fucking totally agree with that. The young men are responsible for leading and protecting young women too. You know what I mean? Like
respect. It's
you
like
know,
you said,
like
that's
you got to. I won't ever have my son be disrespectful to a woman ever. You know, and that's when he'll feel the wrath of me if he ever does that. Yeah. And he knows raising your voice to somebody who's trying to teach you something or be them focusing is a different thing. That's a totally different thing. Or being active in the conversation, but being disrespectful, I won't cop. Just won't cop it. And there's no repercussions. I don't fucking hit my kids or any of that. There's just repercussions, and there's ways that I find that the way I was dealt with as a kid didn't work, so I tried different things.
Yeah,
I think
that's all we can do. Keep bettering ourselves.
Yeah,
you guys with what you do with all with the boxing beyond barriers program, it's a credit to you guys because you actually, if you reach one kid in each high school, job done. If you reach two, then there's two that can work together to inspire another kid. You know, so you know. It's inspiring to see that next generation because there are good kids there. We see it on the news, like all these youth crime and all this shit, but the numbers of those kids isn't extortionate. So there's 400 kids in youth detention in Queensland. There's 600 in other states. But we're talking about Queensland because those 400 kids keep reoffending. Yeah. But there's 400,000 other kids out there that are doing the right thing. So you know what I mean? Those bad kids just need a bit of help. You know. The younger generation that aren't doing crime, they obviously have those solid influences. So those other kids don't.
Well, that's the main thing that we say, isn't it, Jacko? Like the kids that are playing up a few years ago, right? Don't get me wrong. I would have thought he's a fucking dickhead. You know what I mean?
For sure.
But now working with them more and more, I think my first thought is what's going on around him?
Yeah.
Is he hanging with? What's going on at home?
Are you okay, mate? Yeah.
What's everything else around him like outside of that thing that he's done?
That's a coaching mentality that you've got there, and that's why we all respect you because you look at it from a different lens, whereas you look about, you break down the situation where you're not looking at the obvious problem. Yeah. You know, so, and that's why I've learned so much from you about with what you do with the classes. And when I was in COVID, I think I had every time I jump on YouTube, I'd have one of your fucking videos on there because I learned heaps from that.
Yeah, stay busy somehow.
But again, you're looking at it through that lens that a lot of people don't look through. So explaining it the way you do is something that these kids don't hear. Yeah. You know, the guys at our gym, they get me to come in and talk to the kids because they hear these repetitive voices. The two guys drilling these things into them, so to hear it from a third voice that they potentially might respect at some point, which is what I'm trying to gain those guys' respect. I don't expect it. I want to earn it. And then they might listen. And like one of the guys said, he's been trying to drill this thing into this kid for fucking 6 months. Goes, I tell him once, and he's fucking doing it within 5 minutes. Yeah. So it's a simple equation, and that makes me feel good. Yeah. You know, I just got off the phone before I got here with Brendo, the head coach down there. He's just a really good dude who wants to do good things in the community. He wants to build a gym, basically like what you guys have done here. Yeah. Offer opportunities to kids that don't have it. You know, so if we see kids come in and their shoes are raggedy, they can't afford, we'll find out where that kid come from, and then we're like, here we go. $50 instead of shoes, mate. Yeah. Like, and he's like, he'll be your mate forever. That kid will come in, he'll be like, dap you up every time he comes in. He'll have a smile on his face, and that's a safe place for him. There's people there that want him to succeed.
I think knowing it's a safe place too. It's always been mine, but I think the kids coming down, like you come down here, you meet a community of people, and like you can get a trade. Like every job I've ever had through the boxing gym, someone will go, "Right, mate, you're struggling."
Same with shadow boxing. Yeah,
it's the same kind of.
We've got apprentices.
Yeah.
All the guys down their own businesses, plastering companies, chippies. And we hire them because they're motivated kids.
Yeah.
You know,
And
so
they wanna
let's
go.
win one already.
Well, they've turned up because they want to do something
Yeah.
in their lives.
Yeah.
And that's originally how they turn up. But if they just keep open up through the door, magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I have the amount of the young kids that come down, they start following me on social media, and I'm like, oh, cool. And they go, oh, you do music and shit. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, I didn't realise that. And then they start telling me a little bit about it. I didn't even see it as like an option, or is that something that you do? And I'm like, yeah, I fucking do it. I'm not ashamed of it. You know?
When they listen to this podcast, will they be, oh my God?
Maybe.
Have you had these chats with them?
That's my job.
Yeah, you've told
Yep.
them real. Yeah,
Yep.
right, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Exactly as I explained it to you guys, I'm an open book.
Yeah, nice.
And for reasons, because people need to be straight up with these kids, you know. You can't tell them porcupines and expect them to fucking believe a fucking word you're going to say after that.
If you're an edgy kid, like you're a bit borderline, you might go this way, you might go that way.
That was me.
Your best mentor can be the guy that's been there and goes, pull your fucking head in, mate.
Yeah.
You don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Because this is what happens.
Yeah. I think I had that when I was younger through my old man.
Yeah.
But then when I moved away out of the house and got involved in other shit, I just really wanted respect from the real bad people.
Yeah.
Because they garnered respect.
Yeah.
But like, there's only like one person in this world that I ever feared and respected at the same time, and that's my wife's uncle that I lived with down there. He's passed away now. But I called him father for like 3 years of my life because that's how tight knit we were. You know, you don't understand that life until you're in that life. You know, so and people that have been there, they won't listen to somebody that's never done that.
Yeah.
So lived experience is essential. That's what my wife does now because, you know, people like see really horrific crimes done by young people and they'll instantly think, oh, can't you be locked up for the rest of their life? But, you know, everyone makes mistakes, some more brutal than others, but everyone deserves a second chance, you know. So that's the way I look at it anyway.
Kids can read it too. Like if we walked into a boxing, for our boxing program and I was just a glorified PT, they'd be like, mate, fuck off.
Yeah.
But like the same thing, if you've lived that, your story, you can use that.
Yeah.
And they'll believe you because they can pick up on the bullshit.
Yeah.
Or they do.
It's true, man, because I don't go into our gym down there expecting anyone to think I'm an expert at boxing because I'm not. I'm there to work in coordination with the head boxing trainer and the other coach, and I'm learning something at the same time, so it's a win-win. And like you say, you've said this to me before, sometimes you can learn by teaching more than you can by actually learning because you're looking at it from a different set of eyes, and that's the biggest thing I've learned in the last few months being down there, was that.
One of the big buzzes I had was the other day, we were doing some kids come in and we had a sparring session with them. And
the White Axe did, or?
The White Axe did,
The White Axe came out.
Yeah.
I didn't get a call up.
He knows.
He's hogging all the attention for this one.
They were 5 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Faster. No. Anyway, these kids, they're sort of, again, I won't mention names or what even group they're in because they're kids, you know what I mean? But
they deserve that privacy.
That's right.
Yeah.
So these kids are probably a group of kids that are borderline getting booted from school.
Yeah.
But this organisation, they're trying to keep them in school.
Yeah.
Just get good mentors around them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we work with these kids.
You would have been that Gazzo.
Come in
that group.
Yeah, I reckon I would have been in that group.
Yeah.
It was probably 30 years not being invented though when I was at school. So yeah. Anyway, all they want to do is fight and spar. So I said, right, if your teachers can bring out a gym, you come down to the gym, we'll do some sparring. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I lined them up before. I said, right, you boys are going to do 2 by 2 minute rounds. There's me and Shannon. Shannon's, 19 is she? She's 55 kilos or something. Like, it's not much of her, but she knows the way around the boxing ring.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, easy, sir. This is fucking easy. I said, mate, I guarantee you'll be gassed halfway through the first round. You won't even be able to, I'll fucking give it to you, sir. I'm like, there we go.
Yeah. How many times you heard that?
Yeah, so Anyway, first kid, the mouthiest one, got him in first. We've worked, and at first, I was just letting him punch himself out on me, and I'm just like, you're slow, you're slow, you're slow. Like, we were having banter with it. Don't get me wrong. We're laughing at each other and stuff. Mate, he was absolutely gassed. As I said, halfway through the first round, I made him do another one. Anyway, this went on with me and Shannon, and we all sparred with these kids. Afterwards, I got out and we asked them all questions. What did you learn? The first kid, the mouthiest one that thought he was a bluer. I've learned not to speak shit. And I said, that right there is exactly why we did this.
Yeah.
The other one said, I've learned about respect and respect others because you don't know what they're capable of.
Yeah.
I said, these are the answers. That's the reason we went in there and did it. Mate, I'd be really disappointed if these kids didn't go on with their life now and really start making adjustments. Because I've been working for 6 weeks, right?
Yeah.
But that one session there,
Yeah. It's a light bulb moment.
was like, finding gold.
Yeah.
These kids, and 2 out of the 4 kids have contacted us about them coming to the gym now.
Yeah.
Previously to that session, no.
Yeah.
It's just
You created that safe
there.
space.
That's it.
They feel themselves when they're in that space. That's what it is.
That's right. And, those guys that want to throw their hands think they're rough and tough. Once they start doing this, well, they see the little blonde kid over there that's smiling, cute little smile thing. He can't hurt anyone. They see him punch the bag and he's like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's a massive lesson. So
yeah, that's it too. That social media creates that judge a book by its character type of mentality, because that's all you've got to judge someone on by is a picture.
Yeah.
Whereas I hate fucking Facebook. I got rid of it years ago. It was just like people's opinions. It's like a book full of assholes to me. It was just like, I got rid of it ages ago. I couldn't handle it. And then Instagram I sort of used for promotion of music and just be social, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I've connected with a lot of good dudes on there, but there's been some crumbs on there too.
Yeah.
Just people just not using them what it's for, just being disrespectful. Everyone's got an opinion, so you learn that the hard way, but people can have their opinion, they're entitled to it. Yeah, it doesn't mean you have to listen to it or respect it, So,
mate, I think from where you've probably not from where you've come from. It sounded like your childhood was good, like you know what I mean. But you made some shit decisions.
Yeah,
would I be right there?
Exactly right. I didn't need to do the wrong things. I chose to.
Like you had good parents and that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
good surroundings. But
I had mates that grew up in nice houses, but doesn't mean they sort of grew up in a nice house though. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. Yeah.
So, not to say I didn't grow up in a nice house. My parents and that were great. They created opportunities for me. I was just too naive to accept those opportunities. And now, as soon as I got out of jail, first opportunity I got was from my old man job, apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So the opportunities are already always there. Just try and take the goggles off, the blinders off about what you're actually doing, and go, fuck, there is more out there.
There's more. Yeah, there's more. And mate, so to obviously spend some time inside and come out, get in your music. Now you're a father. Now you're a businessman as well.
Yeah.
Just give us a bit of an insight into what you're doing, your daily life consists of nowadays.
Most mornings trying to get my kids ready for school.
Oh, that's a fucking issue too.
I'm not sure if my son got there this morning. It was like ride to school day today, so he rode to school, but he went the wrong way when I drove off. So I hope he got there.
He's somewhere.
He'll get back by 4. It'll be right. But no, we're running a pretty successful landscape maintenance company now called South Bend and Down. I started about 11 years ago now, doing like gardening maintenance and in the domestic sort of circuit, and then got to about 100 domestic clients, which is a lot of fucking work.
Yeah.
You think about looking after 40, 50 yards a week.
How many guys? You?
Me and one other guy. It was at that point. And it just got too much. So, and then we had an opportunity to work in the daycare sector. And now we've evolved from those 100 clients to about 20 different daycares we look after. And that's just doing all their landscape maintenance. The kids ruin those places, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's all natural landscaped areas. So, yeah, I really enjoy actually that role. We've turned into a company 2 years ago now. So me and my wife are the directors of the company. And by the end of the year, we'll have another crew on board, hopefully. And got goals, mate. Yeah.
Good on you, mate.
Yeah, so you just sort of don't really realise what you can achieve in when you put your mind to it, and you actually put everything into it. It's like, people tell you it takes you whatever amount of years to accomplish something, but like I've got a goal at the moment I'm working on with my mate. It's a 10-year goal, and we spoke about it 6 years ago.
Yeah.
We're still working towards that.
Yeah.
So the long game is something that I've always thought about, because you don't think about that when you're younger. Everyone thinks like, fuck, I'm going to get a mortgage. I'm never going to pay that cunt off.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you put your mind to it and you fucking work your ass off for however many years, and you make a little bit extra money doing cashies here, whatever, all legal above board, obviously.
Obviously, yeah.
Because the opportunities are there for that. But yeah, we went from making pretty good money to really good money in the space of a year, just by changing our mindset that if I charge more, I'm already doing a good job anyway. So it's all like mindset, I suppose. That's where it's all come from for work. But getting up every day and representing your own business is a big thing, I find, for me, for my own welfare, because I rely on me every day, and now my kids rely on me, which is no different to any other day.
Yeah.
I started my business probably 2 months after I heard the first heartbeat of my son when she was pregnant, because we tried for about 6 years to have kids, and were told we couldn't have them, and then it sort of cut us up pretty hard, because I always wanted a son and kids. And I think a few months later we just went to Stratty and stopped trying, and bang, fell pregnant, just like that.
Yeah, right.
And it was, I put it down to because we were ready, we were in a good place with everything in our life. A few years ago we weren't so much.
Yeah.
We're still trying to get prepared. Because my missus was on parole for a while. There's institutionalisation that goes on there. People don't understand that if you do a long time in prison, you got no chance of walking into a shopping centre with 1,000 people in there, because you won't be able to handle that. You can't handle big crowds, and that's what it creates. Is just that people don't understand that there's a lot of trauma there from institutionalisation. So not so much from me, but I see it with family members and people that I know, that just changes them from being that happy-go-lucky type of guy to an angry, fuck the world type of guy. So I don't want to become that ever.
Yeah. So you think you're happy now?
Yeah, really happy, man. Yeah, I find it really satisfying giving back now, and I think I've turned that. I've always tried to lead by example, I suppose, since I've had kids, and I do that as a business owner too. Like, I don't expect anyone to come and work for me that they just got to keep up with me physically.
Yeah.
If they can do that, then they've got a job every day. But I just try and do that with my son. It's a fucking hard task to try and be that, be a good role model, because there isn't many out there, But now again, I look back to my old man, who's a great role model for me, business owner now. I've got a really big business. I actually own shares in his company now, because he's turned something that was nothing into something that's fucking generational almost wealth for my family. So that's what I want to create for my family too, Something that when my son turns 17, he can jump in a truck, have a job, be his own boss, learn a trade, fix his missus stuff with his hands, just handy skill. But, don't put too much pressure on the schooling side of it. Just become out, be a good kid, and be able to use your hands, man. Because it's getting lost amongst the next generation. You find it with mechanics and cars, everything's computer generated. There's no trade-minded skills. It used to be a backup profession.
Yeah.
But now people with tradies make more money than people sitting in their offices, I can guarantee you that. I make really good money doing what we're doing, but...
University wasn't for you, was it, Jacko?
No, but I feel like my parents didn't have those opportunities, so I wouldn't say they pushed it on me, but like it's either that or get a job, and I didn't want to get a job because I was boxing, and I didn't know that I could make this my job. So I probably did it to keep mum happy a little bit.
But there's options beyond boxing too, though. You're looking at Gareth like a coach, there's physiotherapy, there's all these different careers that come from that one commitment, And that's the same with music, it's the same with sport, it's the same with work, and it's the same with everything, really. Like, if you really want to achieve it and you put your mind to it, write that shit down and fucking tick it off. And if you don't tick it off, readjust it. That's what, everyone loses at the end. It's just how you come back from that,
That's
It's like anything.
Mate, well, I think that's an excellent chat, and we appreciate your time on the podcast.
And thanks for opening up so much, guys. I think it's such an important story. Like you've gone through all these things and you've seen the other side, and like so many people need to hear these kinds of messages. That
No,
you
I
can
appreciate
turn it around, and one mistake doesn't define you for your whole life.
No, it doesn't. No,
Yeah.
never.
Thanks everybody for listening. Going deep with Gaz Hazard. He's on in Melbourne in May.
May 5th.
Do you know the venue yet?
Laundry Bar.
Laundry Bar. Get down there if you're from Melbourne. Go and check it out. He's a good man. And if you want to have a yarn with him after, I'm sure it'll be available as well.
Maybe.
But you're buying a lemonade, not a beer.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, mate.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Peace.